The sound is soft and rhythmic, like footsteps in dry leaves, or the shuffle of cloth in a quiet room. Outside, the wind hushes through branches. Inside, the fire crackles gently in the hearth behind her. The room smells of warm beeswax and old vellum. As the gall breaks apart, Alma adds a trickle of rainwater. Then, with a pinch of ground iron filings, she stirs until the ink turns from pale amber to stormy black. This is how the monks made it, century after century. Some would say, the ink remembers. She pours the mixture carefully into the hollow shell and sets it beside her quill. Tomorrow, the master illuminator will teach her to dip, to let the feathers tip dance across the page, to stroke. But for tonight, Alma simply watches the ink shimmer. It gleams faintly in the candlelight, a pool of midnight beneath a golden halo. She closes her eyes and listens to the hush of parchment turning, to the distant choir's final notes fading into silence, to the soft breath of her own heart, slowing with the hour. In this sacred stillness, even time forgets to move. The ink is ready, the quill is waiting, and Alma dreams of letters yet unwritten, of pages that glow with gold leaf and curling vines, of saints and stories whispered in midnight tones, of wisdom pressed into vellum in the candlelight. Her breath evens, her thoughts soften, and the night carries her gently into sleep. The fire dims, the wind sighs through the trees, and somewhere in the hush of Incan time, a story waits to be told. Take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. Let the weight of the day melt from your shoulders. Let the quiet cradle you. Gently now. Gently. Feel the softness of the sheets beneath you. The hush of night surrounding you like warm wool. The distant hush of wind brushing through autumn leaves. And a quiet fire crackling slowly somewhere deep inside your imagination. The light is dim, flickering like candlelight, golden and soft. You are safe here. You are still. And it is time to let your thoughts drift far away. Let your breath slow with the rhythm of your heart and feel your mind open like a gentle, worn page. Because our story tonight is ready to begin. Our story begins in a quiet stone monastery, tucked between the low, misty hills of the northern countryside. The wind outside rustles the branches of slender trees, their leaves turning copper and gold in the autumn chill. It is the year 1283, and though the world is filled with noise and trouble beyond the monastery walls, here, in this sacred place of quiet devotion, everything is slow and still and wrapped in peace. Inside the scriptorium, a small chamber warmed by a hearth and lit by beeswax candles. A young girl named Alma kneels patiently beside a wooden bench. She is not yet a nun, not yet a sister of ink and light, but she has been given a gift today, her first feathered quill, and tomorrow she will begin her very first page, an illuminated manuscript decoded by hand, as was tradition long before printing presses or loud machines. But tonight, Alma must prepare. She kneels beside a low oak table, her wool robe whispering against the stone floor, and places a small cloth bundle before her. With slow, reverent fingers, she unties it. Inside lie the tools of her sacred task, a mortar and pestle made of smooth, cool stone, a tiny cloth bag filled with dried oak galls, a small iron rod, a cracked, empty shell for mixing, a pot of rainwater from the monastery cistern, and last of all, the freshly plucked quill from a gray goose that wandered the abbey fields. Its feathers still soft and fragrant with open air. Alma smiles. She has watched the older scribes for years, watched as they crushed the oak galls with patient hands, watched the ink grow darker with iron filings stirred in, watched as letters curled and bloomed beneath their quills. Now it is her turn. She lifts a single oak gall small, brown and rough, the fruit of a tree touched by a tiny, parasitic wasp. Yes, it is true. Oak galls were once tiny green homes for hidden creatures, and now, centuries later, they become the seed of words. She drops the gall into the mortar, and with the stone pestle begins to grind. Scrape, crush, scrape. The night deepens around the monastery. Above, the stars blink faintly behind drifting clouds, their cold light reaching even the high, narrow windows of the stone walls hold their warmth gently now, like a lullaby wrapped in wool, and in the soft stillness, the ink rests beside Alma's hand, like a small pool of twilight. She remains seated, head bowed, palms folded, as if in silent prayer, but her thoughts are floating, featherlight, across parchment, through arches, beyond doors. She is thinking of what she will write. Not words of her own, not yet, for her task, like all scribes before her, is to copy what was already written, to preserve holy lines, letter by careful letter, so that others might one day read them. But even in this, there is art, and beauty, and silence. She imagines the way the quill will curve its first mark, how it will whisper across the page like a soft breeze over river reeds. She imagines the wide first capital, a curled letter, perhaps illuminated with leaves and vines, painted in gold and lapis and deep burgundy. Gold leaf. A whisper of sunlight pressed onto parchment. The older scribes always said, true gold never tarnishes, only rests. Even now, tucked away in drawers and dry cabinets, the gold leaf shimmers, waiting, so thin it floats on breath, so fine it clings to skin like a sunbeam. Tomorrow, she might be allowed to watch it pressed, a square no thicker than a whisper onto a tiny glue spot, until it gleams with quiet holiness, a glowing illumination. She will not be ready to handle gold leaf for many seasons, but just watching is enough for now. For now, she is learning the rhythm of quiet, of small tasks made sacred by care. And so, while the others sleep, Alma practices. She takes her goose feather in hand. Its shaft has been cut, sharpened, and shaped, not unlike how scribes once shaped their tools, with knives and candlelight. She imagines dipping it, imagines drawing a simple H, the first letter of her name, a for Alma, a for Amen, a for the beginning of all things. She holds the feather steady over a scrap of linen and traces the motion in the air, never touching, just drifting, practicing the grace of the gesture, as she has seen Sister do so many times, soft and slow.
Curving, rising, pressing just enough. Every stroke must feel like breathing. The candle beside her burns low, casting a soft golden glow. Outside, the wind carries a hush of pine needles, a slow whisper through the monastery gardens. And somewhere beyond the chapel, a night bird sings a single note. Just one, as if to say, you are not alone. Alma smiles. She is not alone. Generations of scribes have sat where she sits, have whispered over parchment, have listened to the rustle of robes and the tick of time, have held the feather quill like a holy relic, writing not with noise, but with reverence. In those dead centuries, the gold books were rare and precious. A single manuscript could take a full year to complete, and each was copied by hand in monasteries just like this one. Some used ink made from oak galls, like Alma's own. Others used wine or ground lapis lazuli for blues so rich they looked like sky. They painted angels with halos that shimmered like sunlit coins, drew lions that leaped across margins, and curled ivy vines into letters that danced. The margins, they were often filled with play, little creatures, hidden jokes. Sometimes a monk would draw a rabbit playing a harp, or a tiny knight fighting a snail. Alma loved that part, the part where serious things became gentle, even in their sacred work. They laughed quietly. They found joy in the margins. She thinks, perhaps, She too will one day leave something small and secret. A curled fox in the corner. A tiny bird in the bend of a bee. Something soft, something sweet, something that says, I was here, and I smile. She leans back slightly, eyes growing heavy. The fire crackles again. A soft pop of warmth, as if the room itself exhales. Her hands relax. Her thoughts wander. The ink in the shell gleams like moonlight now. Its scent faintly tangy, like wood and rain. Tomorrow it will dry, dark and rich. A black deeper than shadow. That is the magic of oak gall ink. When first laid down, it appears brown. But then it reacts with the year, oxidizes slowly, darkening to a near-permanent black, so permanent. In fact, that even centuries later, the letters survive. In libraries, in glass cases, in archives, beneath cathedrals. The marks remain. Alma's heart slows at the thought that something so small, so quiet, could last forever. A feather and some crushed oak galls, and a hand that moved with patience. That was all. And yet, the words remain. The idea drifts through her like a lullaby. Maybe one day, her hands will copy something that will last for hundreds of years. Maybe one day, a reader will find her careful letters and feel her presence in them, like a breath across the centuries, like a whisper in the candlelight. Alma rests her head gently on the table, eyes closing, mind floating. The scriptorium glows dim around her, its shelves filled with wisdom, its silence like a soft blanket. And in the shell beside her, the ink sleeps too, waiting like a dream, not yet written. Outside, the moon drifts across clouds. Inside, the quill waits in peace, and the story of Alma gently continues.
The monastery bell does not toll at night, but time still moves with the rhythm of embers and the slow turning of stars overhead. Dawn has not yet arrived, but in the scriptorium, soft as a whisper, a new day is already being born. Alma stirs. She doesn't wake all at once. Her mind floats somewhere between sleep and waking, in that gentle space where dreams and memory drift like leaves in water. The warmth of the hearth lingers near her cheek. The smell of ink and beeswax wraps around her like a blanket, and for a moment, she does not move. There is no need to even hear. Even now, she feels the quill waiting beside her. Not demanding, not urgent, just patient. Like the stones of the abbey, like the saints in the stained glass, like the words waiting to be written. When she finally lifts her head, the candle has grown shorter. Its pool of melted wax cooled into a still, golden circle. Outside the window, the sky is the softest gray blue, the color of linen just before morning, and there is a sound, not bells, but footsteps, soft, slippered, measured. The door to the scriptorium opens with a creak that knows the morning well, and in steps sister, her presence, as always, brings quiet, not the stern kind, but the kind that feels like snowfall or soft rain on a roof. She sees Alma, still seated by the ink, and she smiles. A smile like parchment warmed by sun. "Did you sleep here, little one?" she asks. Her voice is gentle as the candlelight. Alma nods, rubbing her eyes. "I wanted to be ready." Sister sets down a wooden tray. Simple bread, warm milk, and a single boiled egg. A scribe's breakfast. "You will need strength," she says. "For your first letter." Alma's heart lifts. Today, she will begin. After a quiet meal, shared in the company of soft pages and glowing light, the room begins to fill with soft life. Other scribes enter, their robes whispering across the stone, their faces serene, already focused. Each takes a place at a desk. Each lights a candle, and as the morning matins echo faintly from the chapel, the scriptorium comes alive, but not with noise, with rhythm, with the scratch of quills, the turn of parchment, the subtle clink of pigment jars being opened. And into this rhythm, Alma is gently welcomed. Sister hands her a fresh sheet of vellum, smooth, cream-colored, prepared from the hide of a sheep, as was tradition. Vellum, not paper. For important texts only. It is cool beneath her fingers, and it smells faintly of the past. She places it gently on her desk, aligns the corners, and breathes. The ink in her shell is still good, still dark, still ready. The quill, her own, has been sharpened with care. And now, the moment has come. Sister leans over, guiding her small hand. Begin with the rubric, she whispers. The red letter. Because in medieval manuscripts, the first letter especially of a new section or prayer was often done in red. Not because it shouted, but because it invited a color of reverence and guidance, drawn from crushed vermilion or ochre earth. Alma dips her quill in a tiny pot of red ink, carefully, reverently, and with a breath, draws her first stroke, a soft curve, then a downward line, a flick at the base. The letter I, the beginning of In Principia, the first words of the book of John. In the beginning, her hand is steady, her breath is calm. She draws the next letter, then the next, slowly, as if painting the rhythm of thought itself. Each letter is shaped with care, not just for legibility, but for beauty. Because, in this place, writing is an act of devotion, not just to the word, but to the moment. Time ceases to rush. The world narrows to the curve of a line. The way a serif curls like ivy on stone. Sister watches quietly, nodding with a soft smile. She does not interrupt, because in that moment, Alma is writing her way into a long tradition, into a river of memory, of scribes and monks, of women and men, who wrote by hand when hands were all there was. She is no longer just a girl. She is a keeper of the quiet, and as her feather moves, and the ink dries behind it, the page slowly begins to breathe. By the end of morning, Alma has written 7 words, not many, but each one glows. Each one rests upon the vellum like a gentle blessing. She leans back, her eyes soft, her fingers ink-stained, her heart full. The other scribes do not speak, but they nod in silent welcome. She is one of them now. And outside, the first golden rays of the sun slip through the windows, touching her page with the light of a new beginning. In the hush of that chamber, with the wind brushing against old glass and a world of voices stored on shelves, Alma writes not just with ink, but with wonder. Alma and the Feathered Ink, ASMR. Bedtime Story. Batch 4. The bell for sext echoes faintly through the stone halls, marking midday. But in the scriptorium, time drifts gently, unbothered by hours or clocks. Alma has finished her modest meal. Bread dipped in warm broth, a sweet fig dried under the monastery eaves, and a few slow sips of mint tea. She sits again at her desk, hands rested, eyes lowered in stillness. Her first 7 words are complete. She traces them softly with her eyes, not touching, but remembering each motion, each dip of the quill, each curve and breath. Sister had told her something important this morning, a whisper, almost forgotten in the hush. The ink listens to your pace. Let it hear your calmness. So Alma breathes slowly. She speaks with no voice, only with the movement of her hand and the silence in her chest. Today, her task is not only to write, but to observe. She is allowed to wander, quietly, among the other scribes, to learn by watching. The scriptorium is larger than it first seems, its high ceiling arching like a ribcage, holding breath and warmth inside. The windows are tall and narrow, letting in slanted light that drapes across desks like silk, and along the wooden tables. The other scribes work. Old Brother Odo, whose fingers tremble gently from years of copying, yet his lines are still straight, his Latin unwavering. Sister Beatrice, who paints illuminations, her fingers stained with blue and gold, her brush dancing like a sigh across the edge of a letter. And others, each with their own rhythm, their own hush, their own small world of words. Alma watches Sister, Beatrice, closely. She is painting a capital M, the first letter of a psalm. The letter rises tall, majestic. Its arches crowned with gold, and within its frame, a winding vine curls upward. Tiny, painted roses bloom along its edges, and nestled at the base, a little hare sleeps beneath a leaf. Alma smiles softly. Another secret in the margins. The gold leaf catches the light, flashing just once like a wink before, settling into stillness. Sister Beatrice does not look up, but she murmurs, without turning her head, "Come closer, little scribe." Alma steps forward quietly. Beatrice dips a soft brush into a shell of glue called gesso, made from ground chalk and honey. With one delicate touch, she dots the curve of the letter. Then, she lifts a thin square of gold leaf. So thin, it shivers at the edge of her breath, so light it floats like dust. She places it gently over the dot of glue, then presses it with a soft cloth. It clings, shimmers, settles into silence. Alma watches every movement, and then Sister Beatrice whispers, as if reading her thoughts. Gold does not shout. It glows quietly, like truth. Alma nods. She does not speak, but the thought settles warmly in her chest. In this room, even color is sacred, not because it is loud, but because it is chosen with care. The blue comes from lapis lazuli, a stone so rare it had to be carried on camelback from the Far East. The red from crushed cochineal beetles, the green from verdigris, formed when copper weeps in vinegar. Each hue was gathered, ground, mixed by hand, with patience and purpose. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was wasted. Even time itself seemed to slow. Just to watch. Alma returns to her desk, with a heart full of quiet joy. Her vellum page waits. The words already written hold a gentle pride, like bricks placed in the foundation of something lasting. She sharpens her quill just slightly, using a small knife passed down through scribes before her. The feather makes no sound as she trims it, just the faintest scrape. And then she dips and writes again. In principia erat verabam. In the beginning was the word. Her strokes are slow, measured, as if her breath is writing too. And as the afternoon light slips across the floor, from one flagstone to the next, Alma enters a gentle trance. The world narrows. Only ink and vellum and silence remain. No one speaks, but it feels as full as a song. Sister passes by her desk. She does not touch Alma's page. She does not speak. She only rests one hand gently on Alma's shoulder. A silent blessing, a nod that says, "You are becoming." The quill is set down. The ink is covered. The candle is snuffed, and Alma rises, her fingers dark with ink, her heart light with wonder. Outside, dusk settles over the hills. Inside, the words rest on vellum, still and holy. Alma and the feathered ink. ASMR. Bedtime story. Batch 5. The sky has turned the color of ink left too long in rainwater. Deep, dusky violet, with threads of darkening gold. The abbey stands wrapped in twilight, its stone walls bathed in silence, its arches stretching into shadow from the distant chapel. The last notes of vespers hang in the air like soft incense, and in the scriptorium, the scribes rise from their work. One by one, they close their inkwells, cap their pigment jars, and place soft claws over their parchments. Nothing is hurried. There is a kind of reverence to endings here. Alma folds her hands quietly. She has written fewer words than most, but her heart feels full of something ancient and gentle and deeply still. Sister approaches once more, her robes whispering along the floor. She gestures for Alma to follow, and the two step through the arched doorway into the long, candlelit hallway beyond. Their footsteps echo softly against the stones, but even the echoes seem hushed, as though the walls themselves are listening. They pass the quiet kitchen, where a pot of lentils simmers gently on the hearth, and turn down a narrow corridor, lined with narrow wooden doors. At the very end, a small door opens into a room that smells faintly of pressed herbs, parchment, and rose oil. It is Sister S' chamber. A small bed, a wooden chest, and a low table where several old books rest. Wrapped in cloth, edges gilded by time, Sister gestures toward a cushion on the floor, and Alma kneels without question. From the chest, the sister withdraws a book, one far older than the rest. Its cover is dark, leather, cracked, and lined like riverbeds in summer. She places it before Alma and opens it slowly. Inside, the pages shimmer faintly, with age, not with gold, not with decoration, but with the delicate flow of long-ago handwriting. The letters are careful, precise. Each word rests on the page, like it belongs there, like it always has. "This," says Sister softly, "is the first book I ever copied." Alma draws in a small breath. The idea feels enormous. To see something written by the same hands that now serve tea, that now offer guidance, written years ago, and yet still glowing, still alive. The sister turns a few pages. "This one," she says, touching a line, "I rewrote 3 times. I was too tired. I rushed, and the ink ran thin." Alma looks closer. Yes, that word is slightly fainter than the others. Still legible, but different. It gives her comfort. Even she had faltered once. The sister smiles gently. "I learned that evening to stop when my breath no longer matched the ink." She closes the book softly and places her hand over Alma's. "Let your writing reflect your heart, and your heart must be at peace." A silence stretches between them, not empty, but full of understanding. Then the sister reaches for a small, flat object beside her lamp. It is a wax tablet, smooth, dark, cradled in a wooden frame. She hands it to Alma, along with a stylus. "Practice your illuminations here," she says. "Sketch without fear. Wax forgets." Alma traces the tablet with a finger. It is warm from the lamp, soft to the touch, inviting. And soon as Sister begins her own quiet reading beside her, Alma begins to draw, not with ink, but with the stylus's fine tip. She sketches a leaf, a vine, a single curled letter A, wrapped in petals. The wax accepts every line without protest. No smudges, no mistakes, just a soft scratch of metal on wax, like a whisper too small to be heard. Time slows again. Outside, the stars begin to appear, one by one, like prayers being lit in the sky. Alma draws a tiny fox in the margin of her imagined letter. Its tail curls, its nose tucks beneath its paws. It is sleeping, peaceful. Sister glances over once, then gives the smallest nod. A margin fox, a quiet companion. Alma smiles and sets down the stylus. Her eyelids grow heavy, her breath slow. The warmth of the room gathers around her like a soft shawl. And as the final candle flickers lower, as the wind hums softly beyond the shutters, Alma leans into the hush of night. A scribe in the making, a keeper of feathered ink, a soul shaped by stillness. And beneath the soft brush of stars, words sleep on vellum. And morning breaks, not with clamor, but with birds' soft, lilting notes weaving through the cool air, as if sung by the wind itself. Alma wakes slowly. The cushion beneath her is warm, her limbs heavy with the comfort of deep rest. Sister is already up, humming softly as she folds a linen cloth. The chamber still glows with the scent of warm wax and old books, a scent that clings to dreams. Alma stretches quietly. Her wax tablet still rests beside her, the sleeping fox intact, and in her heart a calm readiness. They eat breakfast together in the refectory, a long, quiet table lit with morning light. The bread is crusty and fresh, the tea steeped with sage and honey. No voices disturb the peace. The nuns speak with nods, with small smiles, with the rustle of robes, and the passing of butter. Here, silence is not emptiness. It is shared breath, and when Alma finishes, She slips away. Back to the scriptorium. Her place is there. Today, her task is to learn the art of line ruling. Before a word is written on parchment, lines must be drawn, guides, so the script stays even, balanced, like a song composed in straight notes. Sister hands her a tool made of bone, a thin, smoothed ruler, and a piece of lead-tin alloy, soft enough to mark without tearing the vellum. Together, they lean over the fresh page. This is the quiet before the ink. The sister whispers, "Every story begins with invisible scaffolding." They draw lines gently across the page. Light and straight dreams unfold in wax and gold. Horizontal lines to hold the words. Vertical lines to guide the margins. Alma's hands move carefully, her breath aligned with each stroke. As she draws, she remembers that even the grandest manuscripts began this way. The Lindisfarne Gospels, the Book of Kells, all of them born first from quiet lines drawn in silence. Nothing rushed, nothing wasted. Even beauty is built with structure. By mid-morning, Alma is invited to sit beside Brother Odo, despite the tremor in his hands. Still copies Psalms with remarkable grace. His letters are strong, formed in the insular script, a style born from ancient Celtic hands. With tall ascenders and soft curves, he shows her a trick to begin a curved letter by first breathing in and letting the exhale shape the stroke. "Let your breath tell your wrist what to do," he says. She watches, listens, then tries. Her lines are not perfect, but they are improving. She copies the word latatas. I rejoiced. Each letter spaced gently, held between her ruled lines. She finds herself smiling, not from joy, but from stillness. It feels natural, like rain on stone. Brother Odo nods. "Your lines," he says, "already know the path. You just need to follow." Later, she walks the monastery garden paths, beneath arches of ivy and shaded fig trees. The garden is a sanctuary within a sanctuary, a place of herbs. Lavender, rosemary, thyme growing beside sacred texts as if words and roots drink from the same soil. She sees Sister Beatrice kneeling by a bed of WYD, the plant from which blue dye is made. Nearby, a basin filled with water glows faintly green. They are preparing pigment. Beatrice invites Alma closer, and together they stir the crushed leaves into a thickened pulp. The smell is strange earthy, pungent, not unlike the ink, yet more alive. "You must be gentle," Beatrice whispers. "If you stir too quickly, the color runs away." So Alma stirs slowly. The color deepens. Blue blooming in water. Not the sky's blue, but something deeper, older. "Tomorrow, we'll add alum and dry it," Beatrice says. "Then it will be paint." Alma imagines it already. That same deep blue edging the page of her future manuscript. A curl of color in the corner of a psalm. She breathes in the scent of woad and wax and closes her eyes. Here, nothing is wasted. Even plants, even stones, become words, become meaning, become stillness. Back in the scriptorium. The afternoon passes in golden quiet. The sun moves slowly across the floor, its light catching on the dust floating like little stars. Alma copies the second sentence. This time, her hand moves more confidently, her letters less hesitant. She imagines each letter like a thread weaving meaning into the cloth of the world. And when she pauses to rest, she places the feathered quill down gently, as if it too needs a moment of silence. Evening comes again, and the abbey grows quiet once more. Candles are lit, doors are closed, the chapel bells ring the hour of Compline. The final prayer, a prayer for sleep, a prayer for peace. Alma joins the others in the chapel. She kneels beside, sister hands folded, mind soft with gratitude, and as the soft voices rise around her, chanting their final notes, Alma breathes. Tomorrow, there will be more ink, more letters, more quiet, beauty. But for tonight, the words are complete. They rest where they were meant to. On vellum, in breath, in dreams. The abbey sleeps beneath a field of stars, and Alma, the little scribe, sleeps with it. The ink is dried, but the story has just begun. That night Alma dreams, but not in pictures, in textures, in feelings, in the soft press of vellum, in the delicate weight of gold leaf held between fingers. She dreams of feather tips moving like bird wings, of ancient words carried on wind. She dreams of being a part of something older than time. When morning comes, the light filters through the high scriptorium windows like pale honey, soft and amber, warm, but not bright, just enough to stir the silence awake. Alma returns to her desk, her little world of quill and ink, wood and paper, breath and patience. And today, there is something new. Waiting beside her vellum is a folded slip of parchment. She opens it carefully. It is an assignment, written in the crisp, graceful script of Sister. Today you will begin the prayer of St. Julian. Copy it in peace. Let each word find its way through your hand. Alma's heart lifts. St. Julian of Norwich. She remembers the passage, words she had heard whispered in the chapel, sung in soft tones, beneath stained glass. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. She closes her eyes. It's the words echo inside her. They feel like warm cloth, like bread and broth, like sunrise on frost. She prepares her ink again, crushing a few oak galls in her mortar, adding water with slow precision, stirring until the mixture darkens like a rain cloud. She places the ink beside her shell from the first day. Now, dried, its black surface cracked like old bark. That first ink still lingers on her earlier page, marking her beginning. But this new ink, this will mark her becoming. She begins her line, ruling each mark, even each breath steady. As she draws, she imagines Julian herself, a woman who lived in a small, anchorite cell beside a church wall, a woman who chose solitude but found visions, a woman who, in the shadow of plague and sorrow, still whispered hope. Alma breathes in, lets the words fill her, then dips her quill and begins to copy. All shall be well. The A curls gracefully, like a wave drawn into stillness. The L stands tall, like candlelight. The S winds softly like ivy on stone. She writes slowly, letting each letter settle into the vellum like a feather finding its rest. And with each word, a quietness deepens in her. Not emptiness, but a fullness that needs no sound. She doesn't rush. She doesn't count how many lines are done. She'll just write until the ink begins to fade. Then she rests. Sister Beatrice joins her that afternoon. Today, Alma is allowed to add a small illumination beside the first line. Just a simple one. A vine, perhaps. Maybe a blooming rose. Beatrice brings out a tray of dried pigments, each one stored in tiny glass pots. Ochre for yellow, malachite for green, lapis for blue, and of course, a thin square of gold. Choose your colors gently, Beatrice says. Let them speak before you speak for them. Alma studies the line she wrote. All shall be well. And beside it, she sketches a soft, curling vine. Its tip ends in a small blossom, not yet open. A quiet hope. She dips her brush in green and begins to paint. Each stroke is a breath, each curve a thought made visible. When the vine is complete, Beatrice gently presses a dot of glue into the center of the flower, and Alma lays the gold leaf atop it. Together, they smooth it down, and when the excess is brushed away, the gold glows, tiny, perfect, still. Outside, the clouds drift lazily over the hills. Inside, the vine glows like a hidden sun, and Alma sits very still, just breathing, watching the gold catch the light and release it, as if in quiet blessing. Later that evening, As the final candle flickers low, Alma returns to her chamber with the wax tablet. She carves another fox. This one is curled around a quill. Its tail wraps the feather like a blanket, its tiny eyes just peeking out beneath the plume. She smiles. No one will see this, but that doesn't matter. It is hers. A secret in wax, a breath carved from silence. She lies beneath her blanket. The wind rustles gently outside, soft like a turning page. Somewhere down the hall, someone coughs. Somewhere above, a rafter creaks. But otherwise, there is only stillness and the lingering echo of a sentence. All shall be well. And so it shall, in the hush of that ancient place, where ink flows like memory and letters bloom like prayer. A little scribe sleeps in gold-lit peace. The following day begins with low clouds, gray and wool. A quiet drizzle taps at the leaded windows, soft as the whisper of turning parchment. Inside the abbey, everything feels slower, warmer. The walls hold the hush. The hearth in the kitchen burns with gentle strength. And in the scriptorium, the candles are lit a little earlier, casting halos on every surface. Alma takes her seat. Her hand instinctively moves to straighten her tools, the quill, the lead stylus, the fresh square of vellum. Today's work is to copy a small passage from the Psalter, a gentle psalm about still waters and green pastures. She smiles as she reads it under her breath. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Even the words feel like rest, like a lullaby for the heart. She prepares her ink carefully, stirring the oak gall liquid, watching as it darkens with the tiniest swirl of iron. The mixture has become familiar to her now. A scent like wet wood in distant storms. A color like dusk, rich and soft. As the ink settles, Alma remembers the story sister once told her. In some monasteries long ago, scribes would add a drop of wine to their ink on holy feast days. A blessing, a prayer in liquid form. Ink, not just as a tool, but a sacred act. A mixture of elements and intentions. She dips her quill, and with her first exhale, begins He maketh me. The letters flow more easily now. Her hand has learned their curves, their rhythms. There is something deeply soothing about this kind of repetition. Each word known, each line gentle. She imagines the still waters of the psalm clear, mirror-like, a stream in a meadow lined with soft moss and reeds. She lets her mind walk there. As she writes, her feet bare, the stream whispering beside her. Even here, in a stone monastery, the imagination walks freely. Sister pauses at her side. Alma does not look up, but she can feel the approval in the stillness. The way the sister's hands fold softly behind her back. Illuminated letters, the sister says quietly, were never meant only to decorate. They were meant to guide the eyes and the soul. She walks on, leaving behind the scent of rose oil and old wool. At midday, the rain thickens, but no one minds. Rain means the herbs in the garden will thrive. Rain means more water for mixing paints. Rain means quiet, and quiet is a blessing here. After her small meal, Alma is invited to assist Brother Augustine, the monastery's pigment keeper. He rarely speaks, but his hands are always moving, sorting jars, grinding minerals, mixing powders with oil or egg to bind them. He shows Alma how to grind red ochre on a marble slab. The sound is slow and gritty, a rhythm like the turning of ancient pages. The red dust blooms beneath her hand, soft as powdered clay. When she mixes it with egg yolk, it becomes thick and velvety, a paint older than ink, used by icon painters long before her time. Brother Augustine taps the edge of the bowl and gives the faintest nod. She has done it well. Later, as the sun begins to set behind thick clouds, Alma returns to her page. She draws a small illustration in the margin beside the psalm. A gentle stream winding through a hill, lined with wildflowers, and a single curled lamb. Not detailed, not flashy, just soft, just enough to echo the meaning. She uses the ochre red she mixed alongside the green pigment from crushed nettles. The stream she paints in faint silver blue, a thin wash of diluted water, and just beneath the lamb's ear, she dots a flake of gold leaf. Not to show wealth, but to say, "Here lies peace." The other scribes take turns walking past her work. No one speaks, but their silence holds warmth. And when Sister returns, she rests a hand gently on Alma's head, not in correction, but in blessing. "You are learning," she whispers. "But more importantly, you are listening." Night falls slowly. The rain eases. The sky deepens into indigo. Alma washes her quill in silence, caps her ink, tucks her vellum between blotting pages, and as she blows out her candle, she feels something stir in her chest. Not pride, not accomplishment, but belonging. She is part of the page now, part of the stillness, part of the ink. That night, in her sleep, she dreams of a book with no end, its pages turning forever, filled with vines and stars and soft gold light. And each time a new page opens, there she is again, quill in hand, writing, listening, becoming. And outside, beyond the monastery walls, the world waits, but inside, a small scribe glows like a candle in the dark. It is morning again, but today, the air has changed. The breeze carries the scent of green things. The rain has passed and left behind a garden made of pearls, leaves jeweled with droplets, earth freshly turned and breathing. In the scriptorium, the window has been left slightly open. A soft, cool wind flows through, just enough to stir the edge of a parchment page and make the candle flames dance. It is quiet, always quiet, but not still. There's a kind of humming in the room today, not of noise, but of intention, of stories gathering. Alma is seated earlier than usual. The bells haven't yet rung for prime, but her hands are already prepared. She dips her quill into ink, a darker, richer black today, steeped overnight in warm iron water. She tests it on scrap vellum. Yes, it flows smoothly. No drag, no blot. Today, she will begin something special, a dedication page. The prayer of St. Julian she copied yesterday has been approved. The illuminated vine, the soft red flowers, the golden petal, Sister said. Now make a page that opens the heart. A beginning, for anyone who may one day read it. She begins with the largest letter she's ever made, a grand capital B. Inside the space of the letter, she sketches a rising sun, half hidden behind a small cloister wall, its rays extending outward in thin gold threads. Around the outside of the B, she begins to draw tiny birds. Not obvious ones, just soft silhouettes. A sparrow, a robin, a starling. They flutter along the curve of the letter, as though lifting it from the page. She paints them in diluted brown and gray, with a touch of blue for the sky. And when she finishes, she places one dot of gold leaf at the very tip of a bird's wing. It shines just enough to suggest movement, flight and stillness. The B is for Badatus, blessed, the start of the phrase. Badatus, ver, qui, nana B. Blessed is the one who walks not in the counsel of the wicked. But today, Alma copies only the Beaties line. The rest will come tomorrow. Today, it is about beginnings, about first breath. As the hours pass, the scriptorium fills with the low rhythm of creation, the scratching of quills, the turning of pages, the gentle clearing of throats, the careful closing of inkpots. Outside, the abbey cat slips along the windowsill, her paws silent on stone. She pauses by Alma's window, then curls beside a basket of rags and falls asleep, bathed in sun and soft drafts of warm air. Alma glances at her once, smiles, and returns to her work. Sister approaches mid-morning, bringing something wrapped in linen. She places it before Alma and slowly unwraps it to reveal a book. But not just any book, an ancient one. The leather is cracked and darkened with time. The pages, slightly curled at the edges, smell of dust and bees. This, she says softly, was the first psalter copied by the women of this abbey. Alma's eyes widen. The script is finer than she's ever seen. Not perfect, but personal. Alive. And the illuminations, tiny stars, moon phases, silver thread stitched through the margins in delicate patterns of constellations. Sister S' voice is low, nearly a whisper. They believed every psalm they wrote guided a soul through the sky, like lanterns across heaven. Alma turns a page carefully. The ink is faded in places, but the shimmer of care, of stillness, has not faded at all. It glows, softly, like memory. Later, Alma walks alone in the garden, the book's memory still warm in her hands. The world feels closer. The moss seems softer. The wind, more thoughtful. Even the stones beneath her feet feel like they're holding a story. She kneels beside the woad bed. Now heavy with leaf and color, she touches the leaves, thanks them with her breath, and imagines each vein like a word not yet spoken. In the evening, when the candlelight returns and the bells ring compline, Alma returns once more to her page. She looks over the golden bee, the birds in flight, the curve of the parchment still warm from her touch. She dips her quill again, and beneath the letter, she writes a single line in Latin, ad lumen silenti, to the light of silence, a small dedication, not to a saint, not to a scholar, but to the hush itself, to the quiet that makes words possible, to the stillness that carries sound. And when her candle flickers low, when her fingers ache with the good, kinda tired, she places her page gently in the drying rack and steps away. Her foot falls soft on the stone, her heart full. That night, in dreams, she walks through a vast library, its ceiling made of stars, its shelves growing like trees. Each book she touches sings softly, a hymn written in ink, a lullaby drawn in gold, and in the center of it all, a quiet desk, a single quill, waiting. Somewhere, pages are still being written. Somewhere, Alma's name glows faintly at the edge of history. Not loud, but lasting. Morning arrives with a silvery hush. The air is cool, sweet with dew, and the sky above the abbey glows like brushed pearl. In the garden, a wren sings. Its tiny, perfect song. The kind of song that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. A melody woven into the breath of the world. Inside the scriptorium, Alma sits with her hands folded. She has not picked up her quill just yet. She's listening. To the quiet, to the soft creak of the beams above, to the invisible hum of 100 pages. There's no hurry here. Not ever. And when her hands finally do move, they do so with grace, with care, with reverence. Today, she continues her dedication page. But not with Latin. Not even with letters. With illumination. She has chosen a border for the page. A gentle tangle of vines. Hawthorn and rose, with small gold berries, nestled like secrets among the leaves. Each leaf is drawn with the lightest touch, curved as if by breath. She works with dry pigment today. The colors are ground and new, from herbs, minerals, and even shell. For the rose petals, she chooses red lake, a pigment made from crushed madder root, soaked and bound in alum. It is not as vivid as modern paints, but it glows from within, like old embers under ash. For the hawthorn leaves, she uses it shimmers faintly green-blue, the color of aged copper and forest shadows. She paints in silence, her brush barely touching the page. The leaves seem to grow as she paints them, climbing upward, curling inward, never hurried. Around midday, Sister Beatrice joins her. Together, they prepare gesso for new gold leafing. The process is delicate. Chalk, ground with fish, glue, and honey, then stirred until creamy. They apply it in pin-sized dots, where Alma has drawn a pattern of small stars, a constellation that winds through the vines. Beatrice places her hand on Alma's to still it. Gold listens. She whispers, "Wait until your hands are quiet." Alma nods. She breathes deeply, waits. Then, when her pulse has soft, she presses the gold leaf. It clings like magic. She brushes away the excess with a squirrel hairbrush, slow and sweeping, and the stars emerge. Tiny, shining, perfect. When the page is finished, Sister arrives. She studies it in silence, fingertips resting lightly on the edge of the vellum. Then, with the faintest smile, she closes her eyes for a moment, as if offering the page a prayer. She opens them and says simply, "You are no longer copying. You are creating." Alma feels the words settle over her like a warm cloak. Not a boast, not a title, just truth. She is becoming. That evening, after the Cumberland bell has faded, Alma walks the Abbey corridors alone. She carries a candle. Its flame flickers gently against the worn stone walls, casting shadows that look like painted figures. The hallway leads her to the library, a room she has only seen from the doorway. But tonight, the door is open, and inside, a single lantern glows over a table filled with old texts. She steps in, barefoot and careful, and feels the hush of the room gather around her like a great, gentle sea. Books line the walls from floor to ceiling, some bound in leather, others wrapped in cloth, each holding within it the breath of 100 scribes. She walks slowly, touches nothing, only listens, and in the corner, on a stand draped with velvet, is a book unlike the others. It is the Abbey Codex, the very first book ever made in this monastery. It is not opened often, only on feast days, only in silence. She steps close. The cover is worn but beautiful, stitched with silver thread in the pattern of an open eye. She bows her head, then whispers one word, "Gracias." Thank you. For the words, for the ink, for the stillness. She doesn't open the book. She only stands near it, her candle flickering softly beside it, until the wax melts low and the night calls her gently back to rest. In her dreams, she sees the page she made floating among the stars. The gold berries shimmer, the vines curl and bloom, and as she watches, the little illuminated birds take flight, soaring across the dark sky like soft-spoken prayers. Somewhere, a scribe sleeps. Somewhere, her story is inked in light, not loud, not grand, just true. The next morning arrives with soft mists curling in the cloister garden. The sky is pale, wrapped in folds of fog. Not cold, not sharp, just veiled. A world in hush, a breath not yet spoken. In the kitchen, Sister Beatrice stirs a pot of barley porridge with rose hips and crushed hazel. The scent drifts through the halls, earthy, warm, faintly sweet. Alma eats quietly. She loves mornings like these, when sound moves slower, and even footsteps seem to float. Today, she's been given a new kind of task, not to copy, not to illuminate, but to repair. In the scriptorium, Brother Odo gently unwraps an older manuscript. It is cracked, its spine frayed, one page torn near the edge, as if by careless hands. Long ago, but the words still breathe, and Alma can feel them waiting. "You will mend the corner," Odo says, "and restore the margin bird." He shows her an old drawing of a heron half faded, the ink flaked away, its long neck curled downward as though it was plucking thoughts from the margin. Alma blinks softly. She's never restored anything before, but she feels the pull a wish to bring the little bird home again, to give it back its perch. She prepares her tools. First, a sliver of fresh parchment, so thin it bends like silk in her hand. She trims it gently, matches it to the missing corner. Then she'll bruise a tiny pot of paste, flour, water, a hint of clove oil. Old scribes believed it kept worms away. Sister calls it a kiss of preservation. With a badger hairbrush, Alma smooths the patch into place, and when it dries, she begins to redraw the hair, not in her own style. No, she studies the original strokes, follows the old curves, with quiet respect, lets the old scribe's hand guide hers. She does not improve it. She restores it, gently, faithfully. And when it is done, the heron gazes down once more, at the silent margin, as though it never left. Brother Odo returns, peers closely at her work, then nods once, Alma holds her breath. Then he says softly, "It's as if time forgot it was ever missing." Later that day, the rain returns. This time, steady and strong, drumming on the roof, running in rivulets down the arched windows. The abbey becomes a ship of quiet, a vessel on a sea of ink and memory. Inside the scriptorium, the atmosphere deepens. Every sound is magnified. The slow dip of a quill, the faint click of a brush pot, the crackle of parchment warming near the hearth. Alma settles into her rhythm. She'll copy small prayers today, invocations to St. Hill. Each one is short, elegant, carved like wind into air, and each begins with an illuminated letter, shaped like a seed, a circle cradling a shoot. Hildegard believed words were living things, seeds planted by the soul, growing through thought and melody. As Alma writes, she imagines the prayers, not as commands or declarations, but as gentle sprouts, growing roots, reaching upward, becoming light. In the late afternoon, Sister surprises her with a gift, a new quill, longer, smoother, made from the feather of a white swan that had visited the abbey's riverbank last spring. Alma holds it gently, its curve perfect against her hand. She tests it on a piece of scrap parchment. Just a line, then a curve. In the first letter of her name, it glides, not fast, but obedient, like it's always belonged to her. She smiles softly. "Thank you," she whispers. And the sister replies, "It waited long enough to find its scribe." That evening, before sleep, Alma returns once more to her wax tablet. Tonight, she sketches something different. Not a fox, not vines. She draws a door, just a simple arched doorway, with lanterns hanging on either side. Above it, she carves the tiniest scroll unfurled just a little, as if waiting for the first word. She doesn't know what's behind the door. Not yet, but it comforts her to know it's there. Ready, quiet, patient. Outside, the rain continues. The wind hushes the trees, and within the abbey's stone heart, the scribes begin to sleep. Ink dry, candles flicker low, and dreams open like books, waiting to be read. Somewhere, a door is drawn in wax, and a story waits behind it. Not rushed, not loud, just ready. The morning begins with bells, not loud, but distant. A single, measured tone echoing through the cloisters, as if time itself were stretching and sighing. Alma wakes slowly, her limbs heavy beneath her wool blanket. The soft gray light barely touching the edge of her chamber. She lies still for a moment, listening to the wind rustling the ivy, to the crackle of logs being stacked near the hearth, to the comforting hush of lives lived in rhythm. No voices call, no urgency stirs her. The day will begin whenever she is ready to receive it. When she arrives in the scriptorium, a surprise awaits her. A new sheet of vellum, a wide one, almost twice the size she normally works on. Beside it, a small note from Sister, a gift from the apothecary monks, made from winter lambskin, burnished to near translucence. Use it well. Alma runs her fingers gently across its surface. It's smooth, cool, so finely prepared. It feels almost like silk under her hand. A page meant for something sacred, something lasting. She spends most of the morning preparing it. First, she rules the lines, measuring carefully with her stylus, marking the margins with soft lead points. Her breath stays slow, steady, and out she hums softly as she works, a melody she's heard in chapel, but slower, gentler, turned into a lullaby for the page. The scriptorium is nearly silent today. Brother Odo has taken ill, and Sister is visiting the infirmary. Alma is alone, but not lonely. The page keeps her company. The light from the windows, the warmth of the cat, curled up on the sill again, snoring faintly into her paw. By midday, the vellum is ready, and Alma makes a choice. She will not copy today. Not a psalm, not a hymn, not a prayer from a book. She will write something of her own. Just a small passage. Not for vanity, but for practice, for gratitude. She sharpens her swan quill, breathes deeply, and writes, "Let the ink remember what the soul forgets." 7 words, each one drawn slowly, each letter shaped with intention. She does not decorate the line. No gold, no border, just words, pure and soft, as if they had always waited to be found. Afterward, she walks into the courtyard garden. The clouds are breaking apart. Sunlight filters down in slow beams, lighting the rain-soaked herbs. She walks barefoot across the stones, feeling the cold against her soles, reminding her, she is here. She is real. She is part of this moment. A small sparrow hops near her. Unbothered, curious, she kneels quietly, watching as it tilts its head, then darts forward to pluck a thread from the ground. A pale strand of wool caught in a crack. It flies off with it, disappearing into a nest somewhere unseen. She smiles. Even the birds are scribes in their own way, weaving their stories from what the world offers. Back in the scriptorium, Alma returns to her new page. She copies the line once more. Beneath the first, but this time, she adds one thing. A tiny fox, curled at the end of the sentence, its tail wrapped around the final letter. Not perfect, but hers. She dips her brush in soft brown pigment, just enough to shade its ears, then places a dot of gold on its nose. A quiet signature. Sister returns in the evening. She stands behind Alma, studying the line, the fox, the space. Then she says, very gently, "You understand now that even a blank page is a place of prayer." Alma does not answer. She only nods. Slowly, she understands. More than ever. Before sleep, Alma opens her wax tablet one last time. She finds the door she carved last night, and beneath it, she draws a small pair of footprints, leading toward the arch. Still no idea what's beyond. But now, the door isn't alone. It has a path, and the first step has been taken. That night, she dreams not of ink, but of stars, each one a word, each constellation a sentence, each galaxy a story never finished. She floats among them, her quill in hand, gathering the light and writing it down. Not for fame, not for memory, just because it must be written, because it wants to be remembered. Somewhere, a blank page waits for its first word, and the world breathes in, slowly, ready to begin again. The next morning arrives with golden light, not the gray, veiled kind, but the kind that warms the stone floors, soaks the edges of the wooden benches, and makes even dust motes glow like flecks of gold leaf in the air. It is the feast of St. Benedict, a quiet celebration. No banners, no feasts, only extra silence, extra gratitude, and time for reflection. Alma loves this day, not because of rest, but because the scriptorium is open to everyone, even the gardeners, the kitchen sisters, the young ones who usually scrub floors. Anyone who wishes may come and write a single word into the community's shared book. The book is enormous, bound in red leather, laid on a thick oak table that smells of lavender wax. Alma watches as each visitor approaches it, carefully dips their pen, and writes just one word, sometimes in Latin, sometimes in a common tongue, but always slowly, always with reverence. A boy from the stables writes, "Aqua water." An older sister writes, "Misericordia," mercy. Someone else draws only a symbol, a small open eye, watching kindly. There are no rules here, only intention. When it's Alma's turn, she kneels beside the book. Her hands are steady, her breath deep. She chooses one word. Manet. It means, it remains, it endures. She writes it with her swan feather quill, a little extra flourish on the M, a long, curling tail on the final T, then steps back. The word seems to shine, not from gold or paint, but from presence. That afternoon, a soft breeze dances through the scriptorium, and something magical happens. A piece of vellum, forgotten near the hearth, catches the breeze and flutters gently into the center of the room. It turns once, twice, and lands before Alma. On it, a poem copied long ago by an unknown hand. She reads it aloud, just above a whisper. As ink fades, so breath fades. But words live where the heart was made. Even when parchment wears thin, the silence remembers where we begin. She folds the vellum softly, returns it to the shelf where it belongs. But the poem lingers in her. That evening, she returns to her own page, the wide, empty one gifted to her days ago. It is time to finish it. Not with words, but with image. She decides to draw a scene, a circular design, like a rose window, but filled with symbols. A candle, a fox, a feather, a star, a door, a vine, a single sleeping figure curled beside an inkpot. She paints each one in quiet concentration, each symbol small, each one gentle. And when she finishes, she places a ring of gold leaf around the entire design, a circle, an eternal loop. Not a flourish, not for glory, but as a soft seal, a quiet reminder that all things connect, that beginnings, endings, and middles are only points on a wheel. Sister stands behind her. Alma didn't hear her approach. The sister says nothing, only rests a hand on Alma's shoulder. The weight of it is grounding, kind, real. Then she whispers, "Tomorrow, you'll begin binding your first book." Alma turned slowly. A book, her own, not a single page, but many, threaded together, stitched by hand, held in covers she will shape herself. She nods, a quiet nod, the kind that carries both awe and readiness. That night, her dreams are slow and vivid. She walks through a meadow made of parchment. The grass is the trees bloom with quills. Instead of leaves, she kneels beside a brook, and its waters are ink. Cool, dark, flowing around stones shaped like letters. And when she looks at her hands, they are gently stained with black and gold, not messily, but beautifully, as if the world itself has marked her as a keeper of its stories. She wakes before dawn. The sky outside is still velvet, but she lights a candle, sits at her little desk, and opens a blank folio. There's no assignment today, no rubric, no lines ruled, just one page, and on it she writes, "I am ready." Just that, then closes the folio and waits for the sun. Somewhere, a book is about to be born, and in the hush before dawn, a scribe holds its heartbeat. The dawn arrives not with brilliance, but with a whisper, a pale sky blooming with lavender hues, the light spilling gently across the stone windowsill, turning dust into gold. The scriptorium is still closed, but Alma is already awake, sitting quietly by the fire in the small side room used for book. Before her, a stack of folios, carefully dried, each one no longer just pages, but signatures, bound pieces of a whole. Sister appears with a bundle wrapped in linen. She unfolds it slowly, revealing polished wooden boards, one for the front, one for the back, covered in a soft stretch of calfskin, dyed a deep, stormy blue, the color of thought, of ink, of silent twilight. Together, they press the signatures into order, folded in groups, aligned to the grain of the parchment. And then the sewing begins. Not fast, never rushed. A needle, a thread, a breath, through the spine, around the cords, in and out, steady as heartbeat. Alma finds herself falling into rhythm, a meditative stitching, where every pull of thread feels like pulling a memory through time. By midday, the book is whole, the pages stitched tight, the boards pressed firm. Sister nods once. Now it is Alma's to finish, to decorate the cover, to give the book its final face. She chooses a small design, not flowers, not vines, but a quill, wrapped in a ribbon, its tip forming the shape of a star. Around it, she stamps a ring of tiny circles, each one pressed with a warm brass tool heated by the hearth. No gold, no jewels, just quiet beauty, like everything else in her world. When the book is complete, Alma holds it in her lap. It fits perfectly in her hands, not heavy, but full of effort, full of learning, full of slow, sacred hours. She does not weep, but she feels her chest expand, like something opening inside her, a doorway, once sketched in wax, now real. She is not just a student, she is a scribe. Later that evening, the other scribes gather in the chapel. Each brings a book, old or new, copied or composed. One by one, they step to the center and read a line aloud, not for performance, but for offering, as if placing a feather upon the wind. When it is Alma's turn, she stands slowly, carries her book with both hands, steps into the golden glow of candles. She opens to her first page, the wide one, with the 7 words, "Let the ink remember what the soul forgets," and she reads it aloud. Her voice doesn't shake, it doesn't falter, it flows, softly, surely. And when she closes the book again, a silence follows, not awkward, but full, like a breath held in reverence. Sister places a hand on her shoulder once more and says simply, "Now you may teach." Alma looks at her, truly looks, and understands that the story doesn't end here. Not with this book, not with this moment. There will be more pages, more quiet days, more stars, hidden in the corners of letters, and somewhere, someday, another young scribe will sit where she once sat and whisper, "I am ready." That night, Alma sleeps soundly, her hands wrapped gently around the cover of a book, her breath steady, her dreams soft in them. She walks again through that great starlit library, and this time, her book sits on the shelf, not grand, not gilded, but glowing softly, whispering its story to whoever might pass, in whatever century may come. And so, in the quiet warmth of the scriptorium, with a heart full of ink and light, Alma's story comes to rest. Not an ending, but a quiet beginning, folded gently into the hush of history. Good night. Let your thoughts drift like parchment in moonlight, and let your dreams write softly in feathered ink.